Welcome to a new episode of The Brand Called You. Over the last few months, we brought some incredible individuals, and today we have a very, very interesting lady, Ester Martinez. Esther is from Spain, Barcelona, and she's chosen to make India her home.
That's right.
Esther, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Esther is a postgraduate in Human Resources Management from EADA, Spain. She came to do her MBA at the Indian School of Business. She worked for Hewlett Packard and TCS. And then she founded People Matters, which recently hosted Asia's largest HR conference. In fact, I had the opportunity of speaking at the conference, and I've never seen so many HR people in my life.
Thank you.
Esther is a TEDx speaker. So Esther, talk to us about your life as a professional manager before we come to People Matters.
Sure. So, I think as an entrepreneur, when I reflect about my life as a professional manager, it looks like really, truly my past life. Because I think entrepreneurship changes a lot of things in one's life, and we'll talk about it a bit later. But I think as a professional manager, when I reflect about who I was and what were my my learnings at that stage, I think I was always a person who wanted to adapt. Who wanted to contribute. I've always been blessed to work in organizations that were very nurturing, whether when I worked in Manpower as a recruiter, when I worked in Hewlett Packard as part of the HR team, and then I had the privilege to work in TCS across different geographies. So I've always had fantastic managers who have invested in me, who have given me a lot of opportunities. But my entrepreneurship phase was all individual contributor. I really never had the opportunity to have a team or manage a large portfolio. It was always very, very specialized roles, whether it's recruitment or OD or compensation. So it was always really about detail orientation and impact and result. That was my pre-entrepreneurship stage.
But before I get into any other question, I must ask you.
Yeah.
What made you select Indian School of Business for your MBA? And then how did you decide to come to India to live here?
So for me, MBA was a life investment. I never looked at an MBA. I did my MBA when I had already worked for 7-8 years. And I was really looking at experiences, just beyond what you're going to learn in books. I was really looking about how do I get exposed to more things and new things. So one MBA was a must for me. I had thought at that time that I will grow in the stream of HR. So I thought from a HR manager in Spain, how do I grow into a regional role? How do I grow into a global role? So for that, I realized that I had to complement my HR education with business education, and that will really help me be able to up the ladder from a career perspective. On the other hand, I wanted to do an English speaking course, again with the thought process that I wanted to move into global roles. So it had to be English speaking course. So I kind of took away Europe that way. So I was really left with UK, US, some parts of Asia. And then I had traveled a lot when I was young. I had traveled to North America, traveled to London many times. So I really thought that, what am I going to get over and above my MBA experience? And then I started to look at Singapore, Australia. Then I realized, well, I've never been to Singapore before at that time. But I thought it won't be that different from my Europe, US experience, because it's a very advanced economy anyway, same as Australia. So somewhere India just popped.
Amazing.
And when it popped, I had the privilege to find ISB. It was just got founded at that time in 2011, 2012. Sorry, 2001, 2002, apologies. And it was a Wharton Kellogg program. It was a new program, and I thought that's really kind of all aligning. And I came to India to visit the school before applying, and I just was enamored. I thought this is...
Yes, it's a fantastic school. In fact, you'll be happy to know that next week we have Pramod Sinha.
Oh, wow.
Who's one of the founders of ISP.
Yes, of course.
He's coming in and speaking on our podcast.
Very nice. It will be fantastic.
So, from a professional manager to an entrepreneur, why did you decide to make this transition?
So I was very happy, contented with my job. I think different entrepreneurs have different journeys. Some people are born entrepreneurs and just like I had this eagerness to do something on my own. That wasn't me. I was really happy with my job. I was really thinking that I was contributing, and I had a tremendous time. I had the privilege to be married to one of my best friends. So my husband was always the person who kept asking the question about, what else are you going to do? How are you going to move to the next level? What's your aspiration? What do you want to do? What's your purpose? Kind of conversations. And I found those conversations very uncomfortable because, you're happy with your job and you do your 9 to 7 and, you have your weekends and you just keep going with life and years pass by. But I had this person next to me asking that question for over 5 years, saying, what else? He's a very adventurous person. So I think a lot to be blamed is to him.
Yes.
To keep asking that question about, what else? What is really what will bring you fulfillment? So I think in 2009 is when I somehow was open to that question, and I started to say, let me think about it. So from not wanting to even talk about it to realize that, what's the harm on being open to that question?
Correct.
Right? And then let's see where that takes us. So somewhere then I realized that, why not? I think entrepreneurship had knocked my door in different stages and had always not allowed that to be open. Maybe it's a bit of courage, confidence, fear of failure, and content, right? So it's a combination of all of these. So in 2009 is when I realized, why not? We were in Europe at that time. My husband had completely taken a decision that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And we were going to move back to India at that time. And then I thought, why not? What's the worst that can happen was the best question for me. When I was able to face that question, that what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that I don't succeed. And then I go back to my boss at TCS and say, would you take me back?
Sure.
The answer in my mind was 100% they will take me back. They will not only take me back, they'll probably appreciate the experience that I can bring with that failure. So it was very easy in my mind. I don't know, suddenly I felt that I'm not scared anymore. And I started the journey of looking, now that I've decided I want to become an entrepreneur, what all I could do. So at that time, 2009, there were so many opportunities in India, from online furniture to organic food, baby clothing, you name it.
Yes.
And at that time, my son was only 2 before our daughter was born. And so I had all these ideas and I did a lot of business plans and market analysis and you name it. And then at some point I realized that what is it that I really know? What is it that I'm passionate about? And then it really went back to HR. And whatever 6 months, 9 months of analysis I have done, I kind of
And that's how People Matter started.
That's how People Matter started.
Okay, very interesting. I've interacted with you at your conference. I've read a lot about you. You built a very, very outstanding organization. You see it as a platform for talent management and leadership for the C-suite audience. Talk to us a little bit about what you do.
So People Matters is it's a community. Now, from the vision perspective, what we're trying to do is advance the conversation and the impact that people and work has to business. I think for many years we've heard boards and CEOs talking about people being the most important asset in the organization. I think somewhere it's becoming actually true. The reality is that there is a disruption in the business environment, and organizations are really, really now looking at how do I make my organization hyper productive. So productivity is a passive. So how do I make my organization hyper productive? How do we become more hyper innovative? Because disruption is not coming from within my industry, but it's coming from
all
over.
Yeah.
And how do I become more hyper collaborative? How do I decentralize decision making? How do I enable people to collaborate with each other and really be more agile in nature? So my realization is that most of the business problems actually stem into a people problem somewhere. So it's either a leadership alignment problem, or is a structure problem, or is a unlocking potential problem. So People Matters endeavor is really to bridge the gap between what business and HR is focusing on people to really what should be they focusing on, and how can they anticipate the needs of the organization and aligning their people strategy to be able to execute that. I think there are different maturity levels, but I think it's a perfect storm. We've started to see many more business leaders coming to our community, our forums, our roundtables, because the reality is that we really need to figure out the people piece of our business.
It's very interesting. When I started working in 1979 with ITC, there was no function called human resources.
There you are.
It was the personnel function.
There you are.
So we had a personnel manager, we had an industrial relations manager, and now you got CHROs. So, the HR head is now a C-suite manager.
That's right.
And a very trusted member of the CEO's team.
That's right.
What has started to change?
I think that the realization that from lip service to actually realizing that, listen, the people piece is not a HR problem. The people piece is a business opportunity.
Correct.
I think that's what has pushed CEOs to really look for very talented HR professionals. And that's also pushing HR to really up their game.
Yeah.
Because that gap is still, I think, still to be bridged.
So, as a platform that you are building, what really went into building this organization? You said you started in India.
Yes.
When I came to your Tech HR conference, I think you must have had nationalities from every country in Asia, certainly.
That's right. That's right.
So, what has gone into building it from Ester Martinez alone into such a major entity? Yeah. What kind of challenges did you face?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of questions in one question. So let me see what I can. I think the journey has been a discovery journey. I think as a leader, I'm somebody who has a very big ambition, but I'm a very practical person as well. So I think from, we started as a print publication. We then moved into conferences. We had the opportunity and the privilege to get funded in 2012. For us, that was a big achievement. Sure. Because when we started in 2009, a lot of very well-renowned Indian entrepreneurs, looked at me and said, "You're a very passionate person, and I really wish you well." But media, HR, 2009, it's probably the wrong time to start a media business, number one. And number two, HR is too niche. You're set to fail. So that's really our starting point of the journey.
I hope they've all eaten their words.
No, I'm sure they'll be really happy to see that success. I think they were very well wisher. Sure. And I think it's beautiful when people can tell you what all could go wrong.
Correct.
Because that's an opportunity to say, okay, then how do I take that input and how do I build a market differently? So I think it really helped me, even those not so inspiring messages. So for us, the journey has been one step at a time, and I love this analogy of driving in the night, and I share that with my team a lot. When you drive in the night, you can only see as much as you can see, but you're going from A to B, right? You're driving, you're leaving Delhi, it's night, you're going to Jaipur, let us say. You're going to Jaipur, but you can only see 10 meters, 15 meters, right? So as you keep driving, you see the next 10 meters. So I think the first phase of People Matters has been, let us see the next 10 meters and let's keep going. I think phase 2 for People Matters is now our lights have become stronger. So we can see more than 10 meters today. Yeah. We can now see maybe 50 meters or 100 meters. And we have that level of courage and that risk appetite to say, we've driven in the night enough, so we can see more. And whatever we can't see, we can kind of create some anticipation that these are the things that can go wrong and these are things that can go right. So it's been a journey of discovery and a journey of building confidence. The shift from India to Asia was a journey of identifying our playbook, identifying what works for us as a business, what's scalable, what brings top line, what makes it profitable. And that's really what helped us being very successful in our expansion to outside of India.
Amazing. I love your analogy of the headlight, from 10 to 15 meters to 50 to 100.
Yeah, it really helps. It helps
a lot
the
of
team as
startups,
well.
And a lot of startups should learn from that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
You are aggregating content in strategy, recruitment, performance, culture, tech, and life.
Yeah.
Why these sectors and why these specialities?
The way we organize our content, I think there are 4 or 5 main areas. So one is the business side, which is where all our strategic content, there is where we're trying to bridge the gap between what's happening in the digital world, what's happening in the business context, and how is that affecting people and work.
Okay.
So that's one big area from content perspective. The second big area, at the end of the day, we are an HR community, so we need to upskill our functional layers of HR. So all our recruitment, learning, complement, these are all our functional sections, whether we look at it in content in the magazine or in the digital platforms, but also in our events as well. The third layer is the whole experience layer, which to me is two sides of the same coin. As an HR professional, I'm responsible to two stakeholders. One is how do I align myself to business? And then how do I make sure that I unlock potential of everyone in the organization? So the third part is really the experience.
Wow.
And the fourth part, which we've started to invest very heavily, is on the research on how new technologies are affecting HR. So what will blockchain mean to recruitment, for example? Or what is AI and automation doing to take away all the administrative and non-value added work and helping HR to be more consultative in nature? So that's our fourth area of content, which is new emerging technologies, educating and informing the community to get ready and anticipate and get ready for the future roles.
Amazing. I mean, I think you're really changing the whole perception of the HR game.
I wish we are in that journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good luck and more power to you.
Thank you.
But tell me, you spoke about blockchain and you spoke about all the new technologies happening.
Yeah.
How do you see the role of the human resources manager changing?
It will completely transform. I think HR as a function has been a laggard of technology implementation. The consequence to that is there is a huge opportunity. The threat on that is that the shift will be a lot faster than what we think.
Correct.
So if you really look at the pyramid of HR today, majority of the HR roles are sitting today in the administrative HR. What you jokingly spoke about ITC in personnel, there is a lot of personnel under the function of people in HR. But has the role really changed between what ITC used to call personnel and what we call HR today? It's arguable, but it's arguable. I think in some industries, yes. When it comes to maybe technology industry, probably FMCG, probably pharma to some extent, because regulation or export-driven sectors have pushed the people function to have to evolve. But if you look at the majority of other industries, while they may still call themselves HR, we're still doing personnel.
You're right. And, in some of the more traditional companies, automation really means automation of payroll.
That's right. And automation of leaves.
Yeah. And you're talking of a very, very significant leap forward.
That's right. So it's a huge threat. I always, as an entrepreneur, I look at every threat as an opportunity. I think for those HR professionals who are listening to our show today, it's a huge opportunity. Now, do you want to be at the front of that race? You have that opportunity. Regardless of your age, regardless of your seniority level, there is a huge opportunity for you to turn around and actually start truly becoming more strategic. Then I don't think there's anything for you to fear about.
I agree. And interestingly, the HR people are really well qualified.
That's right.
I've often wondered, they are so highly qualified, MBAs, great training, and yet they're not being able to implement all the great stuff they've learned.
It's a courage mindset shift we have to build. And I can relate to it because I was an HR professional for all my career.
Yeah, I agree.
And that mindset was what was stopping me from being an entrepreneur. Maybe I didn't have to become an entrepreneur. Maybe I could have actually become more entrepreneurial in my role. When I look back today, very candidly, and I always used to feel that I'm an outstanding HR professional. Now that I'm a CEO, and I look at myself and I self-assess myself on how much impact I had as an HR manager, I think I could have done way better. I think I used to spend a lot of my time taking care of my own KRAs. and saying, okay, my business leaders need to do goal setting. My job is to make sure that everyone is in a green light. But whether those goals are meaningful to people, that's not my problem. Whether, I had this KRA of step level meetings need to happen. At least 60% of people need to have step. What happens in those conversations? That's not my problem.
True. That's true.
So I think that mindset of looking at HR KRAs need to go away.
Right.
It's not about HR KRAs.
Yeah.
It's about business KRAs. Are meaningful conversations truly happening? Are goals truly helping people to understand what they are contributing? Is it giving them line of sight or not? That's my job as an HR manager, not whether it's happening in the system or not.
And I also find coaching
Yeah,
is catching on in India now.
yeah.
A lot of
It's
HR
needed.
people. Yeah,
It's needed. It's my only worry I have with coaching is that without a business context, see, of course, I understand a coach is not somebody who provides solutions, it's somebody who just enables conversations. But I think if you have a business context,
absolutely.
so I would really encourage everyone in HR to say, go and do a stint in sales, go and pick up a project in finance, over and above your job. Nobody will stop you. If you go to your CEO and say, you know what, there is this, this sales team in the east of India is struggling, can I go and become a sales manager for 6 months? I don't think a CEO will ever stop you.
They will not, but I think it needs a mindset change for the HR person.
I know, but it will really be a transformational opportunity.
I agree. So moving on, you've had amazing success with your startup, if I could call People Matter a startup.
Yes.
Now, of course, it's a very
still
successful, big company.
No, we're still a startup.
And you meet so many people in India and overseas who are going into startups. What are some of the basic mistakes startup entrepreneurs make?
So I can't generalize. I can probably share the mistakes I've made.
Sure.
Because I think everyone's journey is very determined on your own personality and where you come from.
Correct.
So I think that's maybe one thing that need to be very about. So really knowing yourself is probably one of the best investments you can do, because you're likely to make mistakes around your weak areas or about your blind spots. I think for me, the biggest mistake was when we got funded in 2012. As an entrepreneur, you're always bootstrapped. So when you get access to capital, you think that, now all my problems will be solved forever.
True.
Right? And you think that by throwing money to a problem, the problem will get solved.
Correct.
Whether that's in marketing, whether that's in hiring more senior people, whether that's in, So you start actually thinking less about what could potentially be the solution, and you start thinking that just by, hiring a senior person, my, editorial problem will get solved, or my, production, issues will get solved. I think that was my biggest mistake.
Amazing you're saying this, because I had the same experience. I mean, raised a lot of money, and then before you know it, you've run through that money. And I've met so many entrepreneurs, they run a very tight ship till they get the money. And when the money comes, it gets spent very fast.
And the funny thing, we can't learn from each other, unfortunately. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're listening to this show, you will probably acknowledge that here there are two entrepreneurs who have made that mistake. And we know many of them. But when your time comes,
you run the gauntlet yourself.
You will probably do the same mistake. So if you can remember this and make a post-it and leave it somewhere that you can see, and you're a smarter one than I was, maybe you can.
I agree.
That's the biggest. Hiring is, for me, the biggest mistake. If you hire people thinking that your problems will go away, you hire people knowing somewhere that I'm not sure, that will be one of the biggest mistakes. Because you will bring the person, you will invest a lot of your time trying to onboard that person, because it's your personal responsibility that person is successful. And if that doesn't happen, not only you have lost a lot of time and money, you have also created a lot of disturbance in the system. It creates a lot of demotivation. You lose 6 to 9 months of business if you hire the wrong people. So biggest mistake is on hiring and throwing money on problems.
Correct. I agree. So before I move to the next segment,
Yeah.
which is more about Esther as a person, in the beginning you spoke about, doing a 9 to 7 job, and that
Yeah.
got me interested because as a European,
Yeah.
to stay 9 to 7
Yeah.
when most of Europe is moving to 9 to 4
Yeah.
was very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that a transition you made because you've come to Asia? Or is it that's how you are?
I think that's how I am. I'm always somebody who likes to go the extra mile. I'm always somebody who wants to do really well. So if I have an assignment and my boss has given me something to do, I'll always think, okay, what else I can do to add value. So I think that, and I've always loved to work. I mean, I love every single opportunity that's been given to me. So for me, work has never been like, oh my God, I have to go to work. So it's when I say 9 to 7, I mean even weekends I will work, and it's a normal thing. I
understand.
If I love what I do, it's not work.
I mean, I've just come back from Australia, and I was surprised at 5 p.m. The offices are empty.
Yeah, which is also fine. I think in my team I have different kinds of people. There are people who are extremely efficient. Maybe I'm not as efficient, I don't know. There are people who are extremely efficient. One of my best performers in my team. 6 o'clock they're out. They have other things to do in their life. They have hobbies. They have things that they want to take care of. They have house responsibilities, and they're outstanding. And they work 9 to 5, 9 to 6. It doesn't matter. I don't think time is correlated to impact and result. Similarly, I have other team members who just, anytime during the day or the night, they're always connected. They're available. I think it's a personal choice.
So what is the secret of your success?
Esther's success, I don't think I've arrived to. I think it's still a journey. I think
hard
every
work.
day.
Do you have any routines that you follow at work? Or?
I think it is a journey, and I'm still in that journey. So every time I learn something, I reflect about it. It helps me improve. I am in constant seek of becoming better. So I think that's probably one area where that has helped me. I'm very practical, but at the same time, I dream big. I think that has also helped me. Being practical. Surrounding myself with people who are very different to me has really helped me. It's been a struggle because as a person, I'm somebody who doesn't like conflict too much. So surrounding yourself with people who are different puts a lot of pressure on me because I need to align people. I spend a lot of time on making sure I'm listening to people. And at the same time, I also get that feedback from the team that, listen, you're the boss. Finally, you have to take that call. So that combination between being the decision maker, but also bringing the team along has been a struggle, but that has also been the reason why we have been successful as a company.
Very interesting.
Right? So I think these are 2 or 3 things that, I don't know if it's about success, but has helped People Matters become
very interesting. You work long hours, you have young children, and you've lived in India, so there are lots of pressures on women at home, etc. How do you manage work-life balance?
That's so we have 2 kids. So our younger daughter is 9, and our elder son is 12. So they are born in a house of entrepreneurs. My husband is also an entrepreneur. So both of our working times are very long. Both of our lives are very pressed. Thankfully, somehow, when something is going on in People Matters, my husband is there. When something is going on my husband's business, we are there. So that helps balance a little bit. But there is a lot of stress in the house, if I may say, which of course also affects our kids. So we need to be mindful about that. Our daughter is into dance. So she has a lot of extracurricular activities. Our son is into tennis. So they have a lot of work themselves, plus exams, and at home, I mean, my husband is South Indian, so doing excellent at academics is non-negotiable. So everyone is really a very high-performing individual at home. I think what has helped for us is to give ownership and accountability to our children very early.
Okay.
So it's a very coaching culture at home. Like, you are responsible to your stuff. I'm here to help you to create the structure. Like, our son has exams in 3 weeks. So it's okay, what is your goal? What marks you want to get? How much time you have? How you're going to use the time? Do a schedule. You do it. You want to show it to me for input? Show it to me. But it's been, I think what has helped is really giving ownership and accountability to both our children. And somewhere try to just be there a little bit. The entrepreneur life also allows you for that flexibility. Like yesterday, my son was not feeling well, so I was home with him for a bit. My daughter had to practice. She has a football trial this morning, so I woke up early and I took her to the park. We were practicing together. So to me, it's about work-life integration. How do you figure out your priorities? And how do you just keep extending one and the other? And it's never perfect.
I agree.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And that also is a conversation I have with our children. That, sometimes I lose my cool. I'm sorry about it. I'm under stress. The kids also need to know that we are not perfect. Yeah. We are just human beings trying to figure things out.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a very, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know how to define it, but it's a very distributed ownership. Work-life balance is everyone's job at home.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And I endorse everything you've said because that's the way we brought up our son also. Yeah. I agree. So my last question to you, and I love asking this question to all my guests. Tell me some of your biggest learnings from some of your failures or a learning from your failure.
Sure. So I think one is, of course, what I share about hiring.
Yeah.
I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you get very, I don't know, desperate is the right word, but you get very enamored with somebody very senior with a great resume, wants to work with you because you feel that level of maybe insecurity somewhere, and you're like, oh, this person is from this kind of company with this kind of experience. Somewhere, somehow the person is not going to succeed because of culture fit, maybe the chemistry is not right. So I think one of my biggest mistakes has been on hiring. And I look back and I knew. So for me, a mistake is something that you knew and still you did. If you did something and it was wrong, but you actually did not know, to me, that's not a mistake. That's kind of more like a learning. A mistake is something that you knew that you were doing something wrong. You were aware of it and you did not stop yourself. So for me, it's really on the hiring front. I think from personality development point of view, one of my biggest learnings have been on being comfortable with conflict. I used to be very uncomfortable with conflict. And when you run a business, there will be conflict. There will be conflict with clients, there will be conflict with partners, there will be conflict internally with employees. There will be situations where you really have a conflict.
Even with your own self, there will be conflicts.
Just that I can still manage. For me, conflict is more about, I am not happy if somebody is not happy with me. I find that very discomforting. So my immediate reaction would be to try to solve it. And some things need time. Some things can't be sorted right now. Some things may never be sorted. And you have to live with it, right? So I think for me, I don't know if that's a failure, but when I look back, there were things I could have done better. If I would have just accepted that it's fine, we will live with this for now. And I'm not going to do something about it right now. And take that call and be fine with it. Not feel anxious about it or don't feel discomforted about it. Because that just creates, in many ways, that creates a paralysis. That until I don't solve this conflict, I can't move on. Well, no. Right?
Fantastic. Esther, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You've been so honest and so frank in the entire discussion.
Thank you.
Thousands of people watch our podcast. I'm sure many people will come to your Singapore conference next year. So thank you again, and I'm sure I'd love to talk to you again on some other subject in future.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for the Brand Called You. Thank you and see you next week.